Processing trauma. A lot of people spend years replaying old injuries because the pain never really got processed. It just stayed active inside them. Talking about trauma can absolutely help at certain stages, especially when someone has been silenced, dismissed, or carrying shame. But there's also a point where the mind can get trapped in rehearsing the wound instead of building a life beyond it. That doesn't mean pretend it never happened. It means learning how to stop letting the past sit in the driver's seat every day. Sometimes people confuse holding on with honoring what happened. They aren't the same thing. You can acknowledge, yes, that hurt me. Yes, it changed parts of me. Yes, I deserve better, without needing to reopen the emotional file every single time you breathe. Needing somewhere to release that matters too, because if someone tries to force themselves to just let it go without release, the pain usually leaks out sideways. Anger, bitterness, exhaustion, numbness, anxiety, physical tension, hopelessness. Healthy release can look like journaling privately instead of retelling the story to everyone, prayer or spiritual surrender, therapy or support groups with an actual purpose, crying without analyzing it, creating routines and goals that reconnect you to the present, physical movement, walking, learning to redirect conversations away from old wounds, grieving the version of yourself that never got protected. And honestly, sometimes healing is quiet, not dramatic, just slowly noticing. I went a whole afternoon without mentally revisiting that person. I'm starting to care more about my future than proving my pain. That's a big shift. Recognize the difference between processing trauma and living inside trauma. Those are two very different places. People often struggle to say this out loud because they don't want to sound cold or unempathetic. But there is a difference between healthy vulnerability and turning another person into a constant emotional dumping ground. Relationships can start feeling heavy when every interaction becomes centered around unresolved pain with no movement towards support, boundaries, coping tools, or healing practices. Over time, the listener can feel emotionally flooded, helpless, guilty, drained, or even anxious about answering the phone or opening messages. That effect is real. At the same time, it's also true that many people genuinely don't realize they're stuck in a repetition cycle. The nervous system gets attached to retelling the story because it temporarily relieves emotional pressure. It creates validation and connection. It helps organize confusing experiences. Sometimes the brain is still searching for a different ending. But repetition alone doesn't necessarily heal the wound. Sometimes it deepens the groove. There are cases where attention or identity can become wrapped around the trauma. Not always in a manipulative way. Sometimes it's because pain became the main way the person learned to receive care, visibility, or emotional closeness. If someone has spent years unseen, being the hurting person can accidentally become part of how they relate to the world. The healthier middle ground is probably having safe places to process pain, asking consent before unloading heavy emotions, learning emotional regulation and self-soothing, recognizing when conversations are becoming cyclical instead of productive, balancing honesty about suffering with engagement in present-day life, building identity around more than wounds. A helpful question is, am I sharing this to process and move forward, or am I reliving it again? That question alone can change a lot. Awareness of this comes from being on both sides of it. Carrying my own pain for years while also feeling the emotional weight that people can place on each other. That's a pretty human realization for me. Environment affects people more than they realize, emotionally, mentally, physically, even spiritually sometimes. If someone stays surrounded by chaos, conflict, hopelessness, unhealthy routines, or constant negativity, it's hard for the nervous system to ever fully settle. And people often try to think their way into healing while living in conditions that keep reopening the same wounds. And when a full environment change isn't possible yet because of money, family, health, housing, or life circumstances, changing patterns can still create small pockets of stability and identity. Habits matter because they slowly teach the brain my life is not only survival and pain. Productive hobbies can do more than pass time. They can give structure to empty or anxious hours, reduce rumination, rebuild confidence through progress, reconnect people to curiosity and creativity, create healthier communities and conversations, remind someone they are more than what happened to them. Even simple things count. Walking regularly, reading, gardening, journaling, learning a skill online, cooking, volunteering, crafting, exercising, photography, caring for animals, music, studying for certifications, exploring new places locally. A lot of healing is honestly repetition of healthier inputs over time, not one giant breakthrough moment. And sometimes changing patterns means protecting your mental atmosphere too. Less doom scrolling, less revisiting painful conversations, less consuming content that keeps you emotionally activated, more silence, more routine, more intentional people, more moments where your brain gets to experience peace without guilt. I'm thinking about healing in a broader way now, not just talking about feelings, but rebuilding an actual life structure that supports emotional recovery instead of constantly feeding the same cycle.